All right, all right, all right. Peace and reparations. I am going to try to be quick because I feel like I have a lot of information. For those of you that do not know, I am Friday Jones, and this is my YouTube channel, and it's Friday Jones Uncensored, where I try to do a little bit of education and say things that I really think need to be said, particularly in the reparations space. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Liberation Ventures. Upfront, full disclosure, Liberation Ventures did fund the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants in 2022, where we had our conference in Atlanta, and in 2023. I'll get into that through this part, but these are my words. This is not me in any of the hats that I wear and in any capacity. This is my channel to sort of speak about things that I see happening in the space freely. And so without further ado, we are going to get into Liberation Ventures. This is about their nexus in the reparation space. It's important for people to know that this nexus exists. I think for those of us that have been in the space, like myself, since circa 2018-19, you kind of know, but then you don't know. And so tonight, I really want to peel the onion back so that people know a little bit more about the organization and what some of their longer term plans are so that we show up in all spaces. We know that there are commissions happening across the country. We also know that in addition to the commissionings that are happening across the country, there are also lawsuits that are happening. And the last live I did, we talked a little bit about San Francisco. I still need to circle back on what the actual lawsuit is. But in the meantime, in between time, we're going to bring up this video that was shared by Christiane Amanpour, where Aria Florent, who is the director of Liberation Ventures, was on the show, and she was talking about a California action. I'll let you know what I think about the fact that Christiane Amanpour invited Aria as opposed to some of the people in California, specifically from the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, that have been very hands-on in California. But let's play this little clip.
A few weeks ago, the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, signed legislation that would create, I mean, I see you nodding, obviously you know better than me, a state agency to determine who actually qualifies as a descendant of slavery. Progress is, quite slow on all of this. Tell me, what do you think of that legislation? Is that going to help?
I commend Governor Newsom for the bills that he has passed. I want him to do more, as our partners in California also want him to do more. I look forward to the governor's race in California. But I think something that we've learned from reparations efforts all over the globe is that this work is iterative. This work takes time. And that's why it is not only policy change work, but culture change work. And I think Ruti would know as well, I think this work needs to build on itself. And I think that's what we're seeing at the city and state level across the country. And that's why our approach is bottom up, because you can actually learn from the policies that you see implemented at the local level, use them to inform other places, and then ultimately use them all to inform what's possible at the national level.
Aria, I mean, a very disappointing pew, or maybe it's not pew disappointing, maybe it's a normal, percentage. 2021 Research Center poll said 68% of Americans say the descendants of enslaved people in the United States should not be repaid. So that's one thing. My other question on that is, isn't storytelling one of the most important ways of getting, culture to change? Has enough storytelling been done?
It's a great question. So our latest public opinion polling shows that 36% of people support reparations, comprehensive reparations. And that's actually 10 percentage points higher than support was for marriage equality when that movement got started. So wow. I think it's actually really important to put those numbers into perspective. We see the way that public opinion can change over time when you do exactly that, when you tell stories and when you really show people the need for this work. And so that's why an entire pillar of our work is actually narrative change work, because we want to actually tell a new story to the country about what reparations are and who they're for and why they matter. And in particular, why this is not just about Black Americans, this is about all Americans. This is about a really, truly collective approach to actually repairing the harm of slavery that hurts all of us. And therefore, repairing it would benefit all of us.
All right. So where I do agree is there absolutely needs to be narrative storytelling, but narratives matter. And if you are moving within a nexus that really has its own ideology, it is willing to exclude members of the beneficiary class, it wants to gatekeep in terms of power, then we have a problem. This article in Medium came out. We're going to go through it. We're going to go through all these tabs you see up here. We're going to touch them. Before we get into that article that was written by Aria, I just want to briefly talk about the legislation, which was SB 437. This is the legislation that was being discussed in the video, where Cal State University is essentially being given $6 million to help claims of eligibility and genealogy and descendancy for the state of California. This has been enacted. It was passed by Gavin Newsom, but it would be passed by Gavin Newsom. This says that the bill author here is Senator Akilah Weber Pearson, the daughter of our Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. And it's saying she's the author of the bill, but those of us Gavin wrote this bill. He wrote this bill as an objection to Senator Bradford's American Freedmen bill. He literally gutted Senator Bradford's American Freedmen bill in order to not essentially have a freedmen's agency. And so I need people to understand the history, because as she's talking about, as Aria is talking about, storytelling and narratives matter, so does living history. And we are living history through this reparations era. This would establish that the Cal State University, under the administration of the trustees of the California State University, existing laws would require the trustees to control and expand all money appropriated for the support and maintenance of the university. The very first paragraph in this bill, to me, says what this money is all about. Anybody in California knows that Cal States basically have a financial crisis right now, as does most government bodies, and this educational arm of the state of California also has funding challenges right now. And I believe the first sentence, and the trustees for Cal State, guess who is on the board and who is one of the trustees? Gavin Newsom. And not only is Gavin Newsom, as the governor, any governor of California is automatically on the board of trustees. So not only is he on the board of trustees for Cal State, but he is also able to appoint 16 of the 25-member board, which means he runs the board for Cal State. I don't know how much of the $6 million, the bill authorizes the use of up to $6 million as specified for the purposes of enabling the California State University to conduct research in furtherance of the recommendations of the task force, thereby making an appropriation. The bill would authorize Cal State to partner with other universities or nonprofit institutions. Another bomb in this particular piece of legislation that Aria is saying is good, and she hopes that the governor does more. The problem that we have seen, and you can do a Google search, you do not have to trust my words, but the auditors for the state of California have particularly with the last round of audits, found that nonprofits are largely unregulated. There are swaths and millions of dollars that are just missing, misappropriated, where the outcomes for whatever the programs were supposed to be are not what they were promised, where we have people at the very top of these nonprofits making significant salaries at these nonprofits. All of these things are reasons why me personally, and members of the grassroots lineage, slave lineage, reparations, advocacy groups were against this bill. And so again, for us to have Christiane Amanpour, I don't think she knows who the players are. That's why I think Aria is here. I also think that this is a little tip to her and her organization to do a little bump in their storytelling and possibly solicit more funding. That's my read on this particular thing. There are so many of us in the space, and it's unfortunate that mainstream media continues to get things wrong. That's another reason why I started this broadcast. So let's get into this Medium article written by Liberation Ventures. If not us, who? If not now, when? Why funders must continue to invest in reparations and racial repair in the current political climate. Now, I do agree with that. I agree that narratives have to be told. That's why I'm here tonight doing this live. I also believe that funders absolutely have to fund. And I have personally told Aria this, and it has been adopted into Liberation Ventures plan, but we can't just fund C3s. C3s basically are limited in their political power. They cannot lobby. They cannot form PACs, if you will, to get people elected who are pro-reparations. And so when it comes to funding reparations, and I say this for any funders of Liberation Ventures that might be listening, it is important to not just fund 501c3 nonprofits. You also need to be funding C4s. You also need to be funding PACs that are going to get behind descendant, in particular, folks who are running for office, who want to go against the machine that we know as the Democratic Party and as the Republican Party, people who may want to run as independents to get this work done. We're going to get into it. During Trump's first few weeks in office, we have seen this administration enact a barrage of policies threatening the safety, security, and stability of our communities, massive layoffs in critical government offices, wholesale elimination of DEI programs, and immigration raids on community members. These are the beginning. This first paragraph is the reason that the California Legislative Black Caucus back on August 31st, 2024 should have passed all of the bills that Senator Bradford put forth. But because of ego, because of they have some sort of clause, which I proved was false on a prior show, where they have to vote as a block on things so that they can be more effective in their governance. I didn't elect my assembly member, my state senator to their office to have to vote in a block by a caucus. If I want legislation, if other constituents want legislation, that is why I voted you there, to send you there to do that, not to make some sort of side deal in a caucus that prevents the forward movement of what the people want. With fires raging, literally and figuratively, many are wondering, is now the time to invest in the reparations movement? She says she's getting the question often. Why we lost the election, why we're building towards it, what it really will take to win. After a few of these conversations, Liberation Ventures leadership team and IB and Aria took time to write down their thoughts. Short answer being yes. Building a culture of repair, one of reparations, are common sense and commonplace. It will equip us to fight today, tomorrow, win tomorrow, and sustain our progress for generations to come. At our highest level, reparations is the process of the state making amends for harm. While most people think, I don't know why people keep saying that most people think of reparations simply as compensation. One of the narratives that lineage-based advocates have been very, very clear on is making sure that people know the 5 pillars based on international law and the United Nations, what make up reparations. So I don't know why there's this movement to always be moving away from the money. This is America. Money matters. Money rules everything around me. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. It was a song long before the reparations movement got up and off the ground. Anyway, their top line answers to the question, comprehensive reparations remain critical to achieve the thriving multiracial democracy that the vast majority of us across race want. Longstanding economic, social, political inequalities along racial lines undermine our democratic norms. The unfortunate reality is democratic norms in this country have resulted in whole Black towns being put under lakes for the convenience of white people. It has resulted in whole Black economic thriving communities being displaced by freeways, highways, parks, golf courses, all in the name of the greater public good. So this idea that America has this multiracial democracy and what the wants of that democracy are, I challenge that. Because if that's what the democracy wanted, we would have it already. We've got to remember Callie House had 400,000 formerly enslaved people seeking a pension from the United States Congress, and she was denied. Her and Isaiah Dickerson were denied. The 400,000 freed people were denied. We can't hide from those stories when we get into telling narratives. We're at the beginning of a harmful political era. We need a reparative one to heal. I do believe that. I personally do strongly believe that. Movements are not just about federal victories. Reparations policies at the state and local level can be proof points and laboratories of learning. I have never really been a proponent of the municipal actions. I'm going to get into the municipal actions. I'm going to get into the nexus and where that origin story comes from here. Basically, she says that Liberation Ventures believes in this, and that's what it is, right? The issue is the framework. And so initially, this is from 2022. This is around the time Liberation Ventures first got started. I think their first round of funding was in 2022. That's the first year that funding happened. If you go to NAASD's Facebook page, where we did stream our conference down in Atlanta, at the very end, once the camera is sort of out of focus and I'm thanking everyone and we're closing it out, I actually do say on stage, we thank our sponsors. Our sponsor never showed to any event that we had, never showed to the what we did in Atlanta. They didn't show up to what we did in Galveston, where we did immersion, and even our Atlanta trip was a bit immersive in terms of history, because we were somewhere historic and new, and we were steeped in Dr. Martin Luther King's writings. And so I have done, the organization that I'm a part of has done these immersive things that make up the kinds of storytelling that Aria is talking about, right? In 2022, and we're not going, this PowerPoint is super long, and I only have an hour on this app, y'all. But their mission was the act of being set free from imprisonment, slavery, oppression, release freedom, limits on thoughts and behavior. Liberation Ventures funds, supports, connects, and frames a like field of organizations and individuals working on truth, reconciliation, and reparations. That was their mission, right? This is 2022. They have this little core of redress, accountability, reckoning, and acknowledgement. And I just want to jump ahead a little bit because I want to do a comparison. In 2022, this was their plan. They had phase 1, 2, and 3, building a thriving, sustainable, normalized reparations in national dialogue, basically building organizations that can increase their level of support, mainstream stakeholders, and strong field work, right? That's in phase 1. We see this is the nexus. They told us in 2022 who the nexus was. In Cobra, NARC, we have some of our museums. This photo here of Dr. Darity caused quite a bit of controversy. And then here are some larger ecosystems and funding systems that I think contributed to their initial raise for reparations, right? And in here they show, here's Aria, here's Trevor, Here's Jenny Goldfarb. I've met with, sat down with all of these people at a point in time. And then I want you all to take note. If folks is pausing, this is when you want to pause, right? This one, these are the people who were their movement partners. Robin Rue Simmons from Evanston's reparations work was almost immediately pulled in, as was Kavon Ward. Kavon Ward's legislation made it to the governor's desk thanks to Senator Bradford. And then the governor of California rejected the Land Back Act that she and Senator Bradford worked on because there was no American Freedmen Agency, because he vetoed it for this $6 million Cal State Northridge. This $6 million Cal State genealogy study that he basically authored, and not Akilah Weber. So we have to tell our stories and tell the truth. Then over here, some faces that I see. I know Andre Perry, he does great work at Brookings. His research is solid research. I'm going to just say these people are solid people. Dreesen Heath from the Human Rights Watch. These were the original people that were around the formation of Liberation Ventures and who had significant say in how the organization itself moved. Okay. Now let's look at where we are comparatively in 2025. This is on their website. You can go to liberationventures.org, find out more information. And so now this has changed, because now phase 2 is centering the passage of HR 40, right? Before it was demonstrating success, feasibility, activating high profile champions in all sectors. Somehow I don't think I was high profile enough. I may not be high profile, y'all, but I've worked on legislation in multiple states. I've been active, on Capitol Hill. I have spoken around the country. I'm very blessed in this reparations work. I've met some really amazing and beautiful people. And the shift has gone from this and public support and pilot programs to now this, the passage of HR 40, but you also see now underlying local and state efforts in providing impact. Public support is still there, the high profile champions, but you can see the order has been changed. And then the part 3, let's look at before: passed federal legislation, public apology, closing the wealth gap. So we talk in one side of not talking about money, but ultimately was to close that wealth gap and truth telling across nations. And now that has remained the same. The issue, and this is the issue for me, no, not this. The issue for me, oops, sorry, y'all, I'm moving myself ahead in the wrong direction. This is what I'm looking for. So when we talk about the local efforts, I want to get into this. This is where this local stuff happened. And the problem that we're facing now is wherever there's a local action, it opens the door for lawsuits. And we know that the conservatives, we know that the 1%ers in this country, we know the Trump supporters, the super MAGA people, they have deep pockets and they have enough money to fund lawsuits longer than we can try and defend ourselves against the lawsuits. And that's a problem. The only person I know who has formed any sort of legal relief, the NAACP has not stepped up. The ACLU has not really stepped up. I haven't spoken to any of those people. I don't know of any of my comrades that have spoken to these people. And the problem is that I don't think people are really... I was on the lawyer thing 2 years ago. I really was. I wrote a plan. I reached out to some, I'm not going to say names, but I reached out to some deans at some law schools to try and get an actual fund. I was inspired after being down in Tougaloo College in Mississippi and the Amistad story, and basically how through that, the legal fund for that case, we had the HBCUs, including Howard University, of which I'm an alum, be founded and funded for American freedmen. And I said, that's what we need to do now. I wrote a grant proposal, but I needed attorneys to be a part of that action. And unfortunately, I'm trying not to name names, but unfortunately, when you have a Lisa Holder who's an attorney, people know who she is. She was on the task force for California. And so when they look for, oh, well, do you know anything about these people? She's non-lineage. She's the only task force member that I was not able to interview when I was doing Politics in Black. And I think that this silo of picking sides that exists within this nexus of liberation ventures is a problem. This Laying the Foundation for Local Reparations was a guide published in 2020 by Cam Howard, who was the former male chair of NCOBRA. Laying the Foundation for Reparations, a guide for providing national symmetry for local reparations effort. And he says it here. He's the national co-chair, right? They talk about Evanston, they talk about Chicago, to this little section, and I'm sorry for scrolling, but here NARC, he talks about NARC having a minimum criteria that they set up. NARC's 3 minimum criteria. 1, consistent with principles of restorative justice, government, institution, agencies, or individual that is responsible for inflicting the injury or harm cannot define the remedy. Meaning that when we have our California Black Legislative Caucus tell us what reparations is, as opposed to the bills that we help co-author, it's a problem, right? These are crimes resulting from crimes against humanity. I agree with that. The creation of an independent structure to receive resources for restitution is a distinctive qualification for a reparatory justice initiative. Those who suffered must have the power to make decisions and allocation of resources for restitution. I'm an accountant by trade. I understand how FINRA works. I know the SEC mandates what corporations' responsibility, fiscal responsibility must look like. And based on what we're seeing with these nonprofits, I'm sorry, number 2 makes me a little leery. I want a government fund, and it's fine. We can appoint, a stakeholder board. We can appoint some sort of a mutual board to help the federal government do the things that we want to do. But I want my funds FDIC insured. I want it backed by the government. I don't want no problems. I don't want no boats, cars, weird things happening because people don't understand the responsibility that comes from this. Okay. 3rd thing is standard, regular, ordinary public policy is not reparations. That's what Isaac Bryan said. We saw who was supporting. Interesting, but general public policy is not reparations. We've been consistent in our saying that, right? I share this to say, with all of these lawsuits that are happening, this is part of the reason. We should have stayed on the necks of the federal government. Even my being a commissioner, I hope it's a blueprint, but where is the City of LA's report? Why is it that the Department of Justice head, I think her name is Hermeet, I forget what, I might not be saying it right, but DOJ, federal DOJ is suing Asheville when Hermeet's law firm was an advising counsel to Asheville. How is that not some sort of bar? Somebody should be debarred. Like the attorneys at her firm who work for Asheville should be disbarred now that she, as a DOJ federal employee, is now going up against Asheville. There are things that matter, and these things matter. And when I was in Switzerland at the United Nations, people of African descent, one of the things that came up was the fact that research is being done, and because people have an ideology that we're all Black the same, the question of whether or not people were enslaved in the United States of America was not even a question in the research. That to me is erasure. It's dangerous. I don't know how, I just don't know how that's okay. And it's again within this nexus, and that's the problem. Let me go on here to the RFP. Let's get into this letter. I got this letter, and it is Black Reparations Movement in America, Framework for African Descendants, Harm, Entitlements, and Repairs. It goes on talking about NCOBRA and its mission for full reparations for Black African descendants in the U.S. territories, transatlantic slaves, so on and so forth. Talks about how the organizations are a coalition. And then according to them, this is their framework for entitlement. They have an enslavement era from 1526 to 1865. There's a pro-slave Jim Crow era, 1865 to 1964. I think it should be 1968, since that was the last Civil Rights Act of 1968 was around housing, but this is what they're doing. And then they have this modern era of 1965 to present. That's how they kind of break it up. And then they got into this thing of what like lineage-based reparations is, and basically what's wrong with it. Lineage-based reparations is primarily based on American slavery and other harms from 1619 to the present, and therefore advocates only direct descendants of enslaved Africans are entitled to reparations who can trace their lineage to African formerly enslaved Americans. These highlights are citations below, and I'll just briefly show those. But there are four basic concerns about this position. It ignores the vestiges of slavery or ongoing oppression, white, anti-Black, African, racist injuries to all Black people that endured, regardless of whether they were free or immigrant Blacks. There is a Black woman who is on Say Yes to the Dress. She's a dentist in Canada. She bought a $25,000 wedding dress, and it was her second wedding dress. Her father was the director of Nigeria's like gas and energy department. If she was in the United States, there is no part of my being that could justify she deserves reparations just because she moved to the United States in 2024. I can't make sense of that. I personally cannot make sense of that. Okay. The other thing, it's unjust to require African descendants to prove their ancestors were enslaved, considering white enslavers defined them with laws and practices as chattel property and non-human work animals. That was addressed during the AB 3121 hearings and task force. There was actual guidance that was given from genealogists on how to manage that, of which the lineage people supported. So this is misinformation. It's misinformation with citations, which makes it more problematic. Okay, to place the proof of burden on enslaved Africans instead of enslavers is unjust to our ancestors and ourselves. This is especially egregious when one considers white enslavers intentionally destroyed African family lineage. I agree with that, but I also agree with the genealogists who had a remedy for it. Many lineage-based supporters, their only goal is to get cash reparations for enslaved African descendants. I don't think you've talked to enough of us. I don't think that's an accurate statement. And I say that because I have personally helped to draft about 4 or 5 different policy memos that fall under the 5 pillars of reparations from the United Nations. I don't know where this information is coming from. I'm going to show you what was cited, but they do admit here that basically after COVID-19, there was widespread support and the lineage reparationists were skillful with social media. You bet we were. And God rest her soul, a nobly rogue, and other members of ADOS at that time were really helping identify the Democrats who had not voted yes on HR 40. And it was us that whipped those votes. It was not Cobra. But Cobra was invited to the calls and made peace be upon her soul of Sheila Jackson Lee out of Texas. Sheila Jackson Lee, I finally got her chief of staff to sit and hear what it was that we wanted to do. There were weekly calls. The people, the Nexus here was in weekly calls. Every 2 weeks, they were having reparations calls. The lineage people were never invited inside of that circle because this Nexus exists, okay? We were never invited inside of that circle. Never did I get to Sheila Jackson Lee, except for when we were in Galveston and her district was having a parade that we were the only reparationists in down in Houston, Texas, when it was 1,000 degrees and she tried to run. She got out of her SUV, she tried to run. She didn't expect to see us in her hometown, but I'm telling you it happened because of this Nexus here. And I'm going to share, you know, they have these highlights. They quote Dr. Darity, Chinweezu, Reparations, A New Global Order. They quote Jessica Ann Mitchell, also known as Jam Annuar. This was disturbing to me because it's like misinformation and it's trying to get people to spread the misinformation and buy in so that the self-serving acts with regards to funding can continue to happen. I'm going to go back to my Twitter for a second. This is posted right now, but Liberation Ventures Grantmaking Team. This guy, Vikas Maturi. I'm sorry. I spoke to this man one time. And the reason that we were funded, and this is a disclaimer, again, this is my personal knowledge. The reason NAASD was funded was because there was a co-founder to Liberation Ventures. And upon his exit, he made sure that we were funded. These people didn't make sure that we were funded. It was because a man was terminated and he bargained for us as part of his termination agreement to ensure that we would be able to sit at the table with these people. So that's the real truth about what happened. Vikas, he was in Switzerland. He literally was 2 seats in a row of seats, 2 seats away from me, talking to this woman. He downplayed the California reparations effort, and he literally said, oh, California was nothing. You have to meet Robin Rue Simmons because Evanston is the blueprint for the nation. I've never been so disgusted in my life. That was such a sinful and a shameful act. We are Americans in a foreign country at the United Nations trying to make recommendations for what might look good in not just an American model, but an international model. And the best you can do is downplay what California has done when California as a state has been leading the pack. That's unacceptable. That's Vikas. Here, Robin Rue Simmons, I've sort of loosely worked with her. She, I think, got to see how passionate I am in this space. This year, I probably will go to Everly, been invited. I don't think too many of the lineage people have been invited. But when there was that unity, reparations unity thing done in Los Angeles at the time that the city of LA was actually having a reparations advisory commission, a mayor-appointed commission, nobody on that commission was invited there. But she was on the stage. They brought in outside lineage reparationists so that at the time, the NAASD LA was not invited to the table. I was not invited to the table. The city of Los Angeles was not invited to the table. We have Nkechi Taifa. founder of the Reparations Education Project. I like Nkechi Taifa. She's a firecracker, but I also saw her in Switzerland, and she told me she needed a mediator. She couldn't tell the difference between me and Yvette Carnell. Ma'am, I have a body of work that speaks for itself. And she was there with Dr. Cheryl Grills and Lisa Holder. So she's there with two commissioners from the AB 3121 task force. It is absolutely inappropriate for us as Americans, Black Americans. We're both there to say the AB 3121 recommendations should be a blueprint for the United Nations. They said that they got the chance to speak publicly. My first time there, I never got the mic, even though I signed up to speak and to say that and read my little 2-minute speech, but I didn't have the opportunity. Where they're saying the same thing, but we need a mediator in order to work together. You've never worked with me. You did invite me to, I don't know, some fact-finding thing, but with a lot of, when these institutions like do landscape analysis, you don't necessarily get what is published. So even though I was invited, I don't know what was published or said about me personally, the lineage reparations movement. I don't know if the words were kind or not. I don't know. Dr. Grills, she did give me a hug. She had an injury in Switzerland. And I said, you know, I'd like to get us together to have some sort of unification, thinking, okay, these are powerful women. Lisa Holder, the only person I didn't get to interview. Let's sit down. Let's have a conversation. And I get met with, well, we need a mediator because I don't know about you and your work. Well, as soon as the city of LA issues their reparations recommendations, you'll see my work on full display. In the meantime, in between time, I don't know. I don't know. The other troubling thing, and so again, Nexus, these people, 2024 Liberation Ventures had a document about what they would not fund. We won't fund groups that hold and espouse xenophobic, homophobic, transphobic, racist, ableist, misogynist, and or other discriminatory beliefs. Groups that ideologically believe Black people who do not descend from enslaved people in the U.S. are not deserving of any form of U.S. reparations. I don't know what question 5 is, but apparently they have further detail. I don't know how that stance and position is not xenophobic. I really don't. This is unfortunate, but this is what the reparations landscape looks like. And I tell people all the time, I never fought white supremacists. I never fought white government officials, with the exception of Gavin Newsom. And if you follow me on social media at I am Friday Jones, you know I don't care for him. I don't care for him because of the shenanigans like SB 437. You know, he just wants to control power and money and look like he's doing reparations so he can run to be the president allegedly in 2028. I don't like that. But outside of him, I don't know of generally speaking, white legislators that have given as much pushback as within our own reparations. And the unfortunate thing, the Japanese family, John, I'm not saying his last name right, but the author of Redress, attorney John Tadaishi, he said that they kept their arguments private. They didn't put it on public for display. Unfortunately, the person I was told that they can't tell who I am or am not, you don't see xenophobia coming from me. You don't see xenophobia coming from a lot of people doing the work. Why? Because we don't have time for that. We actually do build alliances. We actually do build coalition. We do build multicultural coalition, but we ask people to respect us. Why? Because to be an American freedman, and we got terms, foundational Black American, American descendant of slavery. We have all of these different terms, but it basically addresses a person having origins in the United States with ancestry historically classified as African, mulatto, Negro, Black, or colored, who were either born free or enslaved in the United States and emancipated nationally by 1865 with the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The unfortunate truth is no one's ever talked to us really deeply about why, and I'm going to make it really plain. In 1866, there were the 5 civilized tribes, and I do have it. It's not here. I didn't have it pre-programmed, but it looks like we're gonna have a couple of minutes, and I should be able to just drop the link, and I'll drop the link as a banner, even though it's gonna be a long banner. I'm gonna try and drop it as a banner. But basically, those 5 civilized tribes are, and I don't know why they were civilized, because some of them enslaved and some of them, not all of them, fought for the Confederates. So they were fighting to continue slavery under Mr. Stevenson, who was like the chief of the Confederates, right? The thing is, the Choctaw, the Seminole, the Cherokee, they all get to be freedmen. There is no such thing as the American freedmen. They collectively are known as freedmen. We do not have that designation. And if you compare the treaties from 1866 with William T. Sherman's Field Order 15, let's see, can I make this bigger? Yes, I can. The things that were included in there, everyone talks about the 40 acres and a mule, but basically there was a coastline stretching from Charleston, South Carolina, all the way down the St. Johns River in Florida, including the Georgia Sea Islands. Sepulveda Islands has a beautiful history off of Georgia. They've preserved a lot of their culture because they were so separated from the mainland. A lot of those people are losing land today. But 400,000 acres basically was to be given in 40-acre segments to newly freed Black families after emancipation. Okay. The Blacks basically that might remain in their chosen jobs, they could remain in the jobs. But on the islands and on those 400,000 acres, there were no white people unless they were military officers or soldiers with specific detail of duty to be permitted to reside at the sole and exclusive management of affairs would be left to the free people. What does that mean? That means we would have self-governance. Whenever a Negro has enlisted in the military for service in the United States, he may move his family to the settlement at his pleasure. So I talk often about the many men in my family who have military service, but because of the discrimination in the military, nobody was a general. Nobody got to crash 2 planes like John McCain and still be honorably, discharged from the military. Our men could have taken their families and their wives to this land had Congress not killed this bill. No one, unless an actual settler as above defined or unless absent on government service, will be entitled to claim any right to this land. So land is important. And this is as close to those indigenous treaties as we Negro American descendants of U.S. chattel slavery could possibly get. And I believe all of that is owed to us. And so when we have people who write silly emails about what they think the lineage movement is about, this is what it's about. It's about our actual freaking peoplehood. That's what it's actually about. This woman. This is my great-great-grandmother, Katie. She was born in 1802 in the United States. Her mom was imported to the U.S. Mother Tracy was imported to the U.S. She was a Bamileke woman from West Africa. She spoke 3 languages. She was a merchant. She got caught up. She wound up here in the United States. The reason she was purchased was because she did speak 3 languages. They knew she was smart. They knew she had skills. This is her daughter. This is my great-great-grandmother. And so as a descendant, that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for the same, almost parallel to what some of the indigenous people have. Why? Because it happened here in America. We have different admixtures as part of our community because of America, because of the wars, because of all that makes up America's history. And it's important that the people that think they know, the people in this nexus that I'm talking about, the people that want to say, if not now, when, who, us, no, us. And even in Cam's pamphlet, he says it is those that are injured who are to basically say what they want. I don't have a problem with people who want to repatriate to Africa. I don't know why you don't just pack it up and go now. But if that's what you want for your reparations, I'm here for it. That's not my agenda. I don't have intentions of going anywhere. I say all the time when I talk, that argument is as old as Delaney and Douglas. That was the Go Back to Africa mission that was started by white liberals back in the day. And then they put black faces sort of in front of it. But there are people who were longing to go back, who just wanted out of this nightmare of a life that they had here. And so it's very important. It was important for me to get this out. I'm a people person. I'm here to work with whoever wants to get the work done. People who are not going to gatekeep. When we had our summit down in Atlanta, the Sunday breakfast and brunch, and I asked for help. I said I would like to invite funders to meet the grassroots organizers who are doing the work. And I wanted to bring like Microsoft so that they could give 365. Canva actually gives to nonprofits, but I wanted to bring Canva. I wanted to bring some of the other larger funders like Ford. And I think we reached out to Kellogg to come to meet the grassroots people. We don't need an intermediary. There were people that were given six-figure money. We were not. It took a man being terminated for us to even get a couple of dollars. That's just what it was. That's my understanding. So let me say allegedly. So it's at least on this tape that it's alleged. That's my understanding of how it happened. And it's unfortunate that it had to happen that way. We were never intended to be part of this nexus. And there was a grant, where is it? This RFP they put out, it closed, where they're talking about they were looking for folks who had social media campaigns, film and TV narratives. Method Man, another New Yorker, was trying to do a documentary on the work that was being done in California, came to some of the hearings, tried to get additional funding and couldn't. Maybe Method Man needs to shout out to Liberation Ventures so that he could finish his documentary on the movement here in California. In my last 5 minutes, I want to see if I can find, let's see if it's in here. I may not be able to find it, you guys. But I will drop it on my social media. That's what I'll do, because I'm not going to sit here and go through. We got through everything I wanted to get through. Usually I try to do these pop-ups 20 and 30 minutes. This is a lot of information, but they want to do immersion and small group trip sites. This is what I told them that we needed funding for, but they don't want to fund us. But they put out this RFP this year for small group trips so people could learn and advocate for reparations. The organization I run was already doing that. We've been doing this. We told them we would continue to do it with or without their money. And it's unfortunate that, I don't know, they might just be like, oh, she's disgruntled. I'm not. I actually called the bluff, and I was shown the truth. And I called the bluff by saying, look, we want to do it big in Washington, D.C., at the Smithsonian, have people get their genealogy done on site. We want big name, credible speakers that are going to command a fee. And we want to do a day of advocacy on Capitol Hill. I wrote it up. I sent it in. And that was the last I ever heard from anybody over here. So I don't think we should hide from their spaces. I think we have a right, I know we have a right to be in space. We are the descendants. It is what it is. You know, the next part and phase, people won't like to hear it, but it's going to be Black folks who are out of treaty. Because I think some of us have dual citizenship right here in the United States. We don't have to go across the ocean. But if some of us, that's what we want for our reparations, just like you want to go back to Africa, why is there a conflict? And I want to shout out Brother Sipawi. Sipawi is one of the people who came to, after the August 31st debacle up in Sacramento, and we sent out wide, you know, like a unity conversation. And he came and he wanted the Back to Africa, you know, as part of a federal statement of 10 points. We were only going to do 10 points. But because he came, if that's what you want, we're not here to stand in the way like some other people have. And that Nexus that we talked about has done some nasty work. I don't care about social media and strangers on the internet who don't have faces. They are real advocates in real places doing work. And the work has taken a hit because of the gatekeeping. It is what it is. I am Friday Jones. You can follow me on social media, on all my social media. I left TikTok, y'all. I can't be part of like the Epstein files. Y'all know it's a little crazy, allegedly. So I don't have a TikTok anymore, but you can follow me at I am Friday Jones on all social media, Instagram. I'm really most active on Twitter. That's where I post the most. I'll be doing some creative things coming up, but stay engaged with me. Let's keep dialogue honest. I'm not sure if and when what the next thing is coming down the pipeline, but share information. As long as we're sharing information, as long as we're pulling each other into space, we should be able to get past this and win. But I need some of my legacy people to have real truths, because there was a time when Cobra was considered fringe by the NAACP. And you fast forward now, they are acting like the NAACP, treating people like fringe, being part of a nexus, locking people out of the ability to get funding for their organizations to be effective in the work. That's not okay. Allegedly, that's not okay. So until my next pop-up, peace, love, reparations. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Until next time, good night.